Welcome back to another episode of On the Spot Sports. I'm Jack, and we have a very special guest here today, goaltender for the Columbus River Dragons, Cody Karpisnki. Cody, how are you?
Doing pretty well. Thanks for asking, Jack. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Excited to get this going. We've been wanting to have you for a while now, and it's good to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so you played juniors a while back, 2012, I believe it was, right?
Yeah, so it was 2012 into 2013 was the season. It was my first season back after 6 years on my couch, and I started off the year in where I played till around Christmas time there, and then I was fortunate enough to kind of come home and in a weird circumstance, end up basically with a steal for like a good couple of weeks up until like the deadline. Pretty much just like as like a practice goalie. And then, yeah, the steal, my time stopped with the steal. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a call from the Chicago Blackhawks, and the rest is history, I guess. So, yeah, it's like kind of a weird story. I'll never forget, like I was years. I had just gotten like released and cut, whatever.
Yeah.
From the steal, my goalie coach was like, "Hey, Cody, like what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just chilling at Hooters with my family. Why? What's up?" And he's like, "Hey, the Chicago Blackhawks are going to give you a call in about 5 minutes. Be ready." And I was like, "Hey, like don't mess with me. Like I just got like I don't be able, so." But yeah, what had happened was Ray Emery gotten hurt right before the playoffs. Carter Hutton and Carlson were already called up, so they couldn't call up another goalie for like financial reasons. And
Yeah.
then I did the whole entire cup run in 2013 with the Hawks, just as like a practice goalie for like their Black Aces, and basically that's, for better lack of word, how I got a meeting, I guess, with my coach for college. Which yeah, it's kind of a wild story. So
Yeah, for sure. What was that experience like with the Hawks? Even though you're like a Black Ace, but like it still must have been incredible.
it was amazing. Like I was fortunate enough to meet, and I was across the locker room, like straight directly across from Steve Monador. Rest in peace. But yeah, there's like Brandon Peary was there, Adam Clendenning, who is up and down with Cleveland. Jimmy Hayes is who I sat directly. A bunch of guys up making and are still making like. But then yeah, it was just absolutely. It was like the time of my life, especially because it was such like a whirlwind from getting released from the steal or whatever, and then not being like certain of what the future held, and then yeah, like getting that call, and then originally it was only supposed to be like a one day thing, and they at the end of the skate they're like, all right, come back tomorrow, and then it turned out, all right, here's a schedule for the rest of the week, and then but yeah, basically went the whole entire run, and yeah, it was amazing. Like, it was some of the craziest and like best times of my life so far. So
Yeah, that seems like it was an incredible experience for you, especially since you went into college after that and played at Lindenwood University, right?
yep, Lindenwood, right outside of St. Louis in Missouri, in a city called St. Charles, like 20 minutes outside of St. Louis. Yeah, that basically what got me, for better lack of word, like my college. I don't want to call it like it was. Basically, I got to meet my coach, and that was like enough for him to kind of be like, hey, like I can't promise you anything, but here's a tryout. And yeah, that was enough for him. But I mean, obviously, I think the whole NHL tag kind of brings some weight with it. But I mean, that didn't phase him either. Like my coach in college, my head coach Rick Zombo, he played 15 years or whatever it was in the NHL. Like he, names or drops or whatever wasn't gonna phase him, and he didn't care one way or another. Yeah, that basically got my meeting with him, and yeah, the rest is, I guess, history there.
Yeah, for sure. What was the biggest difference in like the style of the game that you had to change from like going back to college after playing like with like the Black Aces and like juniors and all that?
I think the hardest part for me was that, I mean, like I said, I spent basically 6 years on my couch. I mean, not on my couch, but away from the game.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing for me was just learning how to play again. And like obviously, like I did okay in junior. Like was capable way more. Like, but again, like still trying to figure it out. And then like the Hawks stuff, like that I was like, all right, like, if I can stop these guys on a pretty consistent basis, like maybe I can do something with this,
Yeah.
But the main thing is the speed between levels. You just have less time to think, which I actually think is easier. You just get to play. You don't really get a chance to overthink anything, which is really nice. But yeah, it was. I mean, even the consistency jump between like my team in Brockville. We had a couple of they were rookies. My year. They were 16, 17, but like Griffin Molino was on it, who I mean spent time in the NHL last season.
Mm-hmm.
The Canucks. And I think he's in the A right now. I can't remember where. But like Brownie went to, I believe, RIT, and I mean is signed to an A deal. Like there were some definitely guys who could play, but just like I would say the consistency on like that team between like what I saw with like the USHL, just the consistency is way different. In the USHL, I think like to a point where like all their lines are good, and it's not you don't just really worry about like the top two lines or whatever. Like the consistency is really good there. So yeah, it was kind of weird because then I spent the whole summer pretty much training with the Hawks guys too, and I think that really helped. But then also like it's kind of like you kind of have to readjust after skating with the pros, heading to especially like the ACHA. It's different. It's a slower style game. Again, more of that consistency becomes like a problem. You'll have guys who have Division I commitments but just can't pass clearinghouse, and then all of a sudden they end up in the ACHA, and then like 100 points or something ridiculous in a year. So you definitely have some guys that can play, but yeah, then the consistency kind of drops off. But like our division, Lindenwood's division, what is it, CSHL or whatever.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that I mean, every team in our division was always ranked top 10. Like those games were always like grinds. So yeah, it was just different having to like having to learn how to play again, but also having to like adjust the levels after like month by month basis, I guess, if you will. So it was pretty interesting, but yeah, I mean, I still wouldn't know where I would be without like my goalie coach at Lindenwood my freshman year. His name's Luke Venker. He runs his goalie school's 3E goaltending. But our rink, they installed something backwards and the ice melted, so we didn't have ice at our normal rink the first month. So basically, I had goalie skates with him for the first 3 weeks, just one-on-one, and he basically taught me how to skate again. So that was I don't know where the hell I would be without that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so going back to like how like adjusting to the speed, like I got called up to like a better like division league thing, and like it's a lot easier compared to like the league that I was playing in compared to going up to the next level. It's like a lot like easier to adjust. Like I like that style more.
Yeah, it's It's definitely it's you know, you can just go out and play versus, you know, overthink things, and guys are where they should, when they should be, and it's just, you can predict things a lot easier versus like having to kind of just be, I guess, over patient and then having to just, you know, react to everything afterwards. It's nice when you can just, you know, go out and play and guys are in the correct spots, and, you know, hockey's just how it should be played, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can totally understand that.
Yeah, for sure. What was your favorite college hockey memory from all like all the seasons that you played college hockey for?
Probably nationals. The year we won was held actually in Chicago, which was super nice to you know, my grandparents were there and they're getting older, so that was super awesome for them to be able to witness that. Yeah, probably nationals in Chicago was probably my favorite college memory. You know, there were great ones every year, but I would say probably that one being the number one.
What was that experience like playing nationals in Chicago, especially since it's your hometown?
It was. I mean, I grew up playing like state championships in like the Edge Arena and whatnot, so it was definitely interesting. You kind of have that familiarity with the rink and the setup, which is always nice. You know, you kind of have some history there, and which is always fun. But yeah, it was great. My whole family was fortunate enough to be able to come out, so that was really awesome. Yeah, and I'd done pretty well in that rink the whole entire year. So, you know, I felt confident, but yeah, it was super awesome just being in front of, you know, family and friends, and, you know, being able to see them especially, and then them being able to see, you know, our team succeed, and that was huge for me. And especially stuff like your grandparents, you know, that's especially, you know, once they're getting older, it's awesome when you can, you know, they can witness something special.
Just share those memories with them.
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% what it is, and that's always going to be awesome. So
yeah. So going to like after college hockey, you began your pro career, and you were rostered on 3 teams your first year: the Indy Fuel, Rapid City Rush, and the Watertown Wolves of the Federal Hockey League. What was it like playing for those 3 teams, especially in like the East Coast?
Well, so I started the year actually in Mississippi. I was in training camp in the SP with Mississippi River Kings, and I'd gotten released from that team right after camp. So kind of went home, trained with them, with my goalie coach then. You know, kind of did as best I could to keep everything intact that I worked on. But yeah, it was wild. Indy, I was reaching out to them a bunch just because, you know, they're kind of local, not too far from Chicago, so I knew I could, you know, if they needed somebody in a jam or whatever, I could hop on and, you know, be there pretty quickly. But then, yeah, it was weird. They had called me. I actually was in contact with the team that they were playing that weekend, a whole bunch. And then, yeah, they'd call me and went there the next night. Granted, it wasn't anything like a real contract. It was only an e-bug. And then same-ish type of situation for Rapid City. Rapid City, it was, let's see, a goalie movement going on with their affiliate at that point was Minnesota Wild, and they had a bunch of guys going up and down in the A, and I mean, they didn't know what they had, and it was kind of a mess on that end. And actually, I was supposed to get a PTO there for the 3rd game, but it got shot down, unfortunately. And then yeah, literally, I got home, got off the flight from Rapid City, got back to St. Louis, where I was staying in the meantime, training with my goalie coach. Drove out the next night, 14 or whatever hours it is to Watertown. Got there on like the 23rd of December, I want to say, and then just kind of rode out from there, and again fortunate enough to be on a team that won, and I guess the rest is history. So
Yeah, and you went 16-4-2 that year. Surprise! I saw, so that was really good for you. What was it like getting that shot to start that many games and play like really well, even though after you moved around a lot?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Wasn't expecting for that season to kind of bounce around as much as I did, but also so when I got to Watertown, they weren't in a playoff spot, and then just I think it was more of they were just like, all right, let's keep the ball rolling, and I was playing pretty decently, and I think the guys felt comfortable in front of me. And then, just more of just like a momentum thing, I want to say. And then, that's kind of what had happened. And I know there was only like 6 games in playoffs, but I think, something like that.
Yeah. I think that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, 6 games in playoffs, and then 16 in the regular season, and I mean, granted, I'd gotten there pretty much halfway through the year, but and it was kind of wild. Just kind of got the ball rolling and kind of went with it, and I guess the rest is history.
Yeah, so you guys went on to win the Commissioner's Cup that season, and that must have been like an awesome experience to go through. What was it like to win that championship, especially in your first year pro?
It was kind of like a crazy ending to a crazy year, as weird as that sounds. I still talk to a bunch of those guys. You kind of keep in contact, especially with the guys you went with. But it was wild, and I mean, even the games, so we were playing in the first series. We played Carolina, which Carolina to Watertown, New York, Winston-Salem, Carolina to Watertown, New York is not close at all.
Yeah.
And so they had us playing the first game in Carolina, and the very next night in Watertown.
What the hell?
Yeah, so it was wild, but then also both games went into double overtime.
Ooh.
So we got done with the first game. It was like, I don't know, close to midnight, whatever it was. Got done after the double OT. Friggin' got right on the bus, drove again another 14, 15 hours or whatever it was, because it always takes longer on a bus. We dropped our gear off at the rink. We went and grabbed food real quick, changed into our suits, and then went right back to the rink. So it was like just an adrenaline-filled crazy rush. So
you got no time to rest there.
No, it was. I mean, you slept on the bus, and then hope you got enough coffee or energy drinks or whatever to kind of handle that, or hopefully give yourself some energy. But it was wild. Like that was crazy. Like the travel, just I don't know what they expected. The very next night playing like that, because even if you would have won, even if that game ends in just normal overtime, or normal regulation, that's still a super far drive to be playing 24 hours later. So it was definitely interesting, to say the least. So
yeah, for sure. So that was an incredible experience, especially driving 15 hours right after your overtime games. And then going into this season, you've been splitting the season a lot, or you've been moving around a lot. What's that like, especially since you don't know when your next shot's coming?
So Columbus is my 5th roster of the season so far, which is kind of it's difficult in a way that you don't get too comfortable or whatever, and it's pretty hard to get into a groove. But it's they give me an opportunity, and I was fortunate enough to, I guess kind of right place at the right time when they needed a guy. So, but yeah, it was definitely weird. A lot of, I don't want to say bad bounces, but just a lot of things that kind of just didn't pan out necessarily in the way I wanted them to. And not even really just based on me. It was, a guy comes back from a call up unexpectedly, or a guy, decides he's going to stick around with the team, stuff like that. Yeah, it's but again, I've tried to just handle what I can handle and control what I can control, and so you try not to beat yourself up over too many existential things that you have no control over. So yeah, I've tried to control what I can control, and kind of let the rest handle the rest.
Yeah, Columbus has some pretty sick jerseys too.
Yeah, definitely one of the cooler jerseys that I've ever worn. They're one of my favorites for sure. I mean, it's a River Dragon. Like, it's absolutely, like, it's not a common thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's crazy. They're super sick, and I'm a big fan of the teal, the blue ones. So yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. So, what do you do to stay in shape, and like, how do you practice when you were like, or during the off season, like coming into this year?
So since my first season back, I've been fortunate enough to basically train with the Chicago Blackhawks. Basically do all their skates, do all their captain's practices the whole entire summer. There's a guy, his name's Brian Keane. He basically runs a group of, it's mostly Hawks, but it's also a bunch of NHL guys who live in Chicago over the summer. There's like 30 of them. So, I mean, I'm skating. Once things start going, I'm on the ice like 3 hours a day for like 4 or 5 days a week. So that end is pretty nice. But I definitely, this summer I changed trainers to more of, I don't want to say like hockey focused, rather than just, lifting weights with because my old trainer was also very knowledgeable. I just kind of liked where my new trainer was headed. My new trainer I actually had played with when I was a kid and had played against in college, and yeah, he kind of tailored something a little more specific for me that wasn't just brute strength, but kind of would keep me strong, but also very efficient, very light, which I think is a good thing. Hockey players tend to be on the skinnier side of athletes, normally big butt, big legs, and then kind of like a skinny upper body, but normally you try to be pretty lean. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of ice time. I put 3 for sure, most times 4, possibly 5 days a week in the gym as well. Some of them both in the same day. I don't really start skating super heavy until like around August. Like we're probably like, it's only like once, maybe twice a week up until like probably like late end of June and through July. It's only like once, maybe twice a week. So that's not bad, and it's nice to get your weight up in the gym and feel strong in that end. But yeah, once I start skating, like the 4 to 5 times a week, it's you kind of tail off a little bit on the gym part. At least because you can also overtrain, and that's not good. You don't want to be burnt out by the time you head into your season. So yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you do for like before like you started like heavy skating? What do you do? What do you practice?
For me, I kind of try to listen to my body as much as possible. I feel good when I'm putting in time in the gym. And some days that's, real big, heavy weights or whatever. And some days, that might be stretching, that might be going to a yoga class, which I actually enjoy. Yeah, I try to really just listen to my body and, take it from there. Like, but most times it's me and my trainer in the gym running through, a circuit, or running through like, a program. So that's pretty much what handles it there. If you try to mix in a good amount of strength, definitely conditioning before I really start skating. So we'll do like a lot of rope stuff, a lot of like sprint, jump type that stuff, kind of where you're working on strength but also conditioning at the same time. And then that pretty much takes me right into skating, and then once I start skating, I'm lucky enough that I skate so hard and so long all those days that I really don't need to worry about conditioning in the gym. So the ice pretty much takes care of it for me for there. So that's nice.
Yeah, so going to when you said you play hockey in the summer in Chicago, you play in the CPHL. How do you get invited to play in the CPHL? What was that experience like?
Well, it was the guy that the coach that handles the basically like the Hawks practice, captain's practices, for better lack of word, and handles that group of NHL guys. That handles the NHL guys in Chicago. He's a big part of it, and also Anders Sorensen, who's a coach for Rockford right now in the AHL and Chicago system. He's known me for a good couple of years, basically since I started playing again as well. And the first season they needed a guy, and then they were like, "Well, you're already here all the time, anyways." And then this summer it was like, "All right, like here's the schedule." So immediately it was more of like on a fill-in basis, and then they realized like hey, this guy probably isn't going to come the rest of the summer because he's living on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
But yeah, it started off again just kind of like a one-time thing, and they're like, all right, like if you can make it every single time, go for it. So
what's it like getting shot on by like superstars like Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat, all those guys that have been in the NHL for a while now?
It's super fun and also super frustrating at the same time. So it's super fun because I get to skate with those guys pretty frequently. I'm pretty fortunate on that end, but it's super frustrating because it's also summer, so it's pretty much optional defense. Yeah. And on that end, it's it's not uncommon for me to see like a 3-on-0. Like there's a video of DeBrincat scoring, and it's like Tommy DePauli, who's in the Penguin system, DeBrincat, or JT Comfort coming down on the 3-on-0, and it was like, all right, well, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do here. It's pretty optional defense, and it's not like I'm not expecting them to play defense, and it's all fun anyways because it's summer. But excuse me, it can be pretty wild.
Yeah. Did they give you any good chirps or chirp you a lot whenever you're out there?
No, I don't know if liberty to say, but it gets it's pretty friendly a lot of times, especially because I skated with the guys earlier that day, or would see them the very next day anyways. And it's like little ones that kind of like little bragging rights or whatever, which is always that's pretty typical hockey. Nothing too crazy because it's all there for charity anyways. But yeah, it can get pretty funny out there, and I'm in the back, so I pretty much hear a bunch of it. So it's it's pretty funny. I've got a smile on my face pretty much the whole time. So and I'll like I know like I had said something to DeBrincat earlier. There was one play where there's a picture like I'm smiling clearly, and it was like it was like right after his goal, and I had said something about him scoring on me like not enough times that morning or something, so it was bound to happen sooner or later. So like it's always like all fun and games, so that's always fun. And like they're all great guys, so it's super fun, and there's not like hate or animosity towards anyone on the ice for the most part. it's all, guys just being dudes and just being hockey players. So there's a little bit of friendly jarring, and that's about it.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like goalies get lit up a lot too in those games.
Yeah, like an 11-9 game is not uncommon, or like I think I lost the game like 10. I lost the game 11-10. On an overtime goal or something. It was, yeah, it's definitely wild, and I mean, especially like you give pretty much anyone who's past a certain point in hockey enough time or space, and they're gonna make you pay for it. And especially when you've got like guys like Alex DeBrincat coming down, like that guy doesn't need very much time or space, and then he gets it all this time and space in the summer league, and it definitely makes you pay. So
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a ton of fun, and I mean, again, like it's so cool being out there with those guys. So
Yeah, for sure. Just seems like a blast. I went to one last year, and seems like everyone just has a good time. It's all just fun.
yeah, it's definitely it's all friendly. And I mean, it's all for a great cause too. It's all for charity. So yeah, it definitely is a good time, and kind of one of the highlights of my summer, just because I get to hang out with a bunch of friends and play hockey. So
Yeah, for sure. We got a few more questions for you before we let you go. So, what advice would you give to younger goalies that are looking to get to like the next level?
definitely, like, so my biggest thing is not having regrets, like whether it be people wanting to oh, should I go play juniors, or should I do this? Well, I would rather look back on something 10, 15 years later and be like, oh, you know what, I gave it a shot, or I tried my best, and it didn't work out, rather than having to look back in 10 years and be like, oh man, I wish I would have done that. But also, it's just the typical holds true. Like, if you work hard, eventually somebody's going to give you a chance, and then it's up to you to kind of go from there. And as long as you keep working hard, like somebody's going to notice it somewhere, and then yeah, once they open a door, you've got to walk through it. So, but yeah, it's just the typical. Just keep going. And hockey should be fun at the end of the day. So make sure you enjoy it, because you can only play it so long, and we're only able to do this for so long. So enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, for sure. It always seems like hockey's just about opportunities. Get every opportunity you can. Just get the most out of it.
Yeah, it's and that's kind of a double-edged sword, because if you're playing well, you're probably going to get more opportunities or more benefit of the doubt. But yeah, it's right place, right time. But I also believe that has a lot to do with your personal thing. If you're playing well, then the right place, the right time might come to you more frequently, or might come to you rather than somebody else, and then ultimately it's up to you to kind of go with it and run from there.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you look up to as a kid when you first started playing goalie or watching hockey?
So when I first started playing hockey, number one, I was a defenseman first. My favorite was like Brian Leach, actually, for the Rangers. But goalie wise, it was Yevgeny Nabokov, Brian Boucher. I love Patrick Waugh. And then I like Felix Potvin, Cujo as well. Those were a bunch of my favorites. But yeah, I would say probably the biggest two was like Evgeny Nabokov when he was with the Sharks, and then Brian Boucher when he was with Philly. Like those were like my two like favorites. So
yeah, I wasn't there, or I wasn't alive back then when they started playing, but I do remember Nabokov and Boucher. And they're really good. And then I saw highlights from like Patrick Waugh's days, Mike Vernon, all those guys. So it's just fun to go back and watch those highlights.
Yeah, I always thought like Patrick Waugh had like the coolest pads. I thought like Cujo had like the coolest paint job, but I loved the way that like Nabokov played, and I was like, I was a I don't want to say like a huge Sharks fan, but I really like the Sharks as a kid, so it kind of made sense for me to like him, and yeah, I love the way he played back in the day, and yeah, he was. I would say he would probably be my number one favorite.
Yeah, I loved watching all those guys. What's your goal for after hockey?
That's hard to say. I'm trying to take a bit out, trying to make it as far and play as long as I can at the current point in time. And after hockey, I don't know. I guess I'll cross that bridge when I get there. I mean, I guess as cliche as it sounds, just be happy, right?
Yeah, always got to be happy.
I think honestly, as cliche as that sounds, I think that's probably what my goal will be. And that goal is kind of different for everyone. It happens different for everyone, but yeah, that's I would say that. It might be different. I might have very different goals. Might have a very different answer, but as of right now, yeah, just be happy. So.
Yeah, for sure. That's about all we have. But maybe next time you're in Chicago, we could go to a rink or something and do some challenges, something if you want to.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
Yeah, so thank you for your time. It's been an honor having you on the podcast, Cody, and good luck the rest of the way.
All right, thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.